This time on Captain Castle's Laboratory, we are working on the Department 56 Holiday Traditions Peppermint Peats from their North Pole series, and as it says on the box, disc no longer rotates. So, I'll plug it in and show you. It does have power, I just have the light loosened so I don't have to be blinded by it. There we go. Can you hear it? Nothing. You can hear the motor though. I think it's got a broken yeah, doing good for beginning of the video. I think it has a broken synchronous motor. I know it's a synchronous motor because I can, one, see it from the bottom, and two, holy smokes, this thing's tight. Sorry, I can't grab very well. I ripped my thumbnail off earlier today, and my thumb is a little on the sore side, so grabbing stuff is a little more difficult at the moment. So, oh wow, this thing does not. There we go. Holy smokes. Well, there you go. There's the whole video. That's how you unplug it. No. So, to save on some time, I went ahead and got the top hot so it can be removed. It took about 15 minutes and the temperature was 400 degrees C, which is 752 degrees Fahrenheit, to get the glue to break free on this ceramic top. And you'll see why, because I didn't take it off yet, because this thing is still warm. They use a lot of glue. I mean, look at that. There's a lot of glue. So there's the motor. I have heard of people putting these things in the oven. I'm not a big fan of that. It gives you a more equal heat, but if you forget about it, you're going to cook your house. And then it probably won't, well, smell good, and I guarantee you're not going to want to eat out of your oven for a while. So, went around with the heat stick or the heat pen or whatever you want to use. On a 2 setting or 3 setting, it's going to be the highest setting. You need to get this thing hot if it's glued like this one was. And that's not even an understatement. 752 degrees Fahrenheit is extremely hot. And the whole house is warm. But if you were to stick it in the oven, which, again, I've never done it. I have heard of people doing it. You got to be careful because there are things in here that can't handle super high heats, like the wiring, the plastic plug, things like that. So be aware. So this is a 12 volt, 5.6 RPMs counter clockwise rotation, 2.5 watt AC motor. And as much as I hate to do it again, let's try and plug this thing in. I just want to plug it in enough to make it work-ish. So now the disc is rotating. Now it's trying to rotate the wrong way. Now it's rotating the right way, but it's really slow. Oh, apparently it operates these guys down here too. I just realized that because I'm like, why is there a pulley on this? I've never... Look at that. They do spin-ish. Every one I've ever come across, I've never noticed the wheels right here. That also, you can see, well, I know it's a bad motor because you're not supposed to be able to spin a disc on a synchronous motor. But all the ones I've ever seen, they squeak, or I've heard lots of issues with this piece, mainly that they squeak. They make a lot of noise. One of the biggest issues I see at the moment is we got a couple of nuts here, not a big deal. We can get those off, even though the screw heads are behind the metal disc for the candy, the peppermint. But I don't know if you can see this really well, but this is resin to hold the base plate in. They also resin the motor. So you can see the resin goes up the back of the motor. that means it's going to be a little more difficult to get out. Now there's a chance that once I get these nuts out, I might be able to break it free, because resin doesn't adhere as strong to metal as it does porcelain and plastics, and that's because of how porous the material is in most cases. Metal is usually less porous, especially when it's, you know, smooth like that. But let's find out. Let's see if this fancy kit here has that size socket or nut. That would be, of course, it's one size too small. That would be so cool if it did. It's probably a 6 mil or a 1/4 inch. The other option is trying to break the screws loose. Let's see if I can just break them loose with a flat, there we go, a flat pair of pliers here. So if you have this piece and you're going to take it apart, take your time, get it hot. Do not jump up to the maximum heat immediately. Over that 20 minutes, I went from 150 degrees C to 400 degrees C. And that's because if you superheat it too fast, you can potentially crack this. And that's because it'll heat up too rapidly for it to dissipate the heat down the side. So like the whole thing is warm because of how much heat it was absorbing. So you definitely don't want to just go full bore, you know, put your thing at 4,000 degrees and just hit it instantly. Work your way up to it, and if you have to, wear gloves or like. I thought about grabbing some glove gloves or something, because when I was done, before I turned on the camera, this was, well, impossible to touch, even at the bottom. Surprisingly, the only thing that really wasn't hot was the very, very front and the metal disc, which now I know it's a metal disc. I'm surprised it didn't pick up any of the heat. Even this motor against my thumb is warm. It's not hot, it's just warm. So a pair of needle nose pliers or flat jawed pliers, you can probably get those out without any problems. Now comes the next part. Because not only is this resin here, we have a drive shaft that goes through that drives a pulley, so we know there's a pulley. This metal plate has a pin that goes right inside where this little peppermint would be as a stabilizer, so that it doesn't wander. So if we pull wrong, we risk cracking the front of this, and we don't want to do that. So I'm just going to see if it'll give me any movement whatsoever. That's a good sign. There we go. I'm getting it to break free from the resin. There we go. So now it's broke free from the resin. Now we need to see how to get this motor out. I'm assuming it's screwed in, but I'm not sure how we're going to get the rest of this plate out. Let's see, is there anything in the bottom I can see? How do they get this metal plate in here? So much for just being able to pull the motor out. Well, hopefully these come out, because it looks like the only thing holding this in place is this huge amount of resin and these two peppermints. So we will attempt to pop these off first. Let's just put a little pressure on the back. I do have a lot of give, but I think that's just a slack in the plate. Yeah. Take a look inside. Yeah, the whole plate's flexing. They're not moving at all. A little more pressure. They're kind of coming out. problem is now it's hitting the eave here. Putting this back together is going to be a treat. I'm not going to lie. This is going to be a pain. So the whole plate's flexing. I don't know if you can see it in there. It's kind of curved forward. And if I put, pretty sure I saw it sprung back. So I need to put something down inside to try and hold the plate from flexing while I try and pop off this peppermint. I'm hoping the peppermints just pop out. They definitely don't feel like it. Casting hole right here, so why don't we try this one first. So there's the plate, there's the peppermint. No. Trying to clean off the shaft is covered in gunk, probably from years and years of use. So I can see the shafts and see if I can find a trick on how to get this thing apart. It almost looks like they're screwed in. No, they're not. I can see the back of the shafts here. Make sure. Double check to make sure that this isn't screwed in and maybe it's just pressed in. Because it'd be funny if I'm just wasting time to find out it's just pressed in. Because most of the time synchronous motors have a thread on top and they're threaded in, and I can't tell if this pin back here is a thread or if it's just the alignment pin to keep that centered. But it's metal. I can definitely see the metal between the ceramic and the metal disc. I think it is threaded in because I think I just broke the threads free. Yep. Let's see if I do that. What I'm trying to do is put pressure on the motor and then spin the disc in an unscrewing fashion to see if it'll allow, if it is actually threaded, like I think it is, to come out. Because the disc is now completely free of the whatever's holding it in place up here in the front. Really wish I could see. might have to heat up this resin, get it to break free. Just enough that I can get a little bit more play on this motor, because as I'm pulling it back, it's just hitting the resin. So, because I really don't want to disassemble this whole plate if I don't have to, especially since I cannot get the two lower pinwheels out, or candies, whatever you want to refer to them as. I know why some of these squeak is because if this isn't square and this is rubbing the porcelain, this metal plate will vibrate, give you that sound. So I'm going to attempt some more heat. Let's move the plug. What I'm doing with the screwdriver is I'm poking the resin to see if it's getting pliable, which is starting to now. The machine is set at 230 degrees C. There's a starting point since the house is still warm. It's not hot, just warm. And I'm going directly to the resin. I'm not heating up the porcelain around it. I'm heating up the resin directly. Bump it up just a little bit more to 250, because it is getting pliable, but it's not allowing me to puncture it with the edge of the screwdriver yet. Now I'm starting to get some marks with the screwdriver. Try a smaller one. There we go. Side. As this cools down, it's already starting to get hard. That's the thing about resin. Alright, so ooh, that screwdriver's hot. Don't poke yourself with it. You might be able to see that the whole thing is shifted now that I've been getting a trough made for the back of this motor. Okay, so I have chiseled out a trough using heat and screwdrivers, which that screwdriver is insanely hot. So is this motor. But now I can tip the motor. Now let's see if it'll pry off or if it's still screwed. What I'm trying to do is get the screwdriver as close to the base as possible, so there's less stress on the plate. And no, it's a screw. I can see the screw. There's a screw right there in the center. Since there's enough slack for me to push it back, I can actually see the screw now. There you go. Should be shutting off here soon. That's weird. Just do it the old-fashioned way. That's hot. So I'm going to go back to putting pressure on the motor and trying to unscrew it using the pinwheel. And it's actually starting to work. So as I'm spinning the pinwheel, the screw is unscrewing. Now the pinwheel is spinning, there we go, it's spinning faster than the screw because it is slipping. Holy smokes, that's hot. So, you do have to get the pinwheel up and or out to do this. I'll show you the screw. I think I can probably just slip the belt off the pulley. I think there's enough room. I hope. Maybe not. So if you kind of look down inside there, you'll see the little metal shiny silver thing. That's the screw. And then the motor should be able to fish this plug out. There we go. So this motor, besides being ungodly hot, has a medium length shaft that's threaded. It's round. And it's 12 volts AC. And do I even have a 12 volt AC motor? I do. That shaft is much larger. I don't think it will fit in the hole. No, it will not fit in the hole. There we go. Now it's a little bit more manageable as far as temperature goes. There's the screw. There's the back. So apparently this screw also kind of screws. Oh, it's just because of the resin. Just out of curiosity, is that the same screw pattern? Yes. So the difference between the two is this is a 4.5 RPM, this is a 5.6, so this one's slightly faster. This one's a 4 watt, this is a 2.5, this is reverses directions each time, this one doesn't. But also the diameter of the motor itself is different. You should be able to notice that it's much fatter. So this one probably won't work. Probably won't fit inside that. I might have to order one of these and then continue once I find one. 11 volt AC riveted, 120 volt. Just going through some of my my motors here. Well, if you remember this from my previous video, that's a 12 volt motor. You don't really need, and it's got a threaded shaft. It's a little long, but we might be able to trim that down. So let's see if it's 12 volts AC or DC. It just says 12 volts on the side. I'm going to assume it's going to be DC, but we are going to we're going to test it. And if not, I'll find a motor, we'll get it ordered, and we'll get this thing fixed in a week or so when it shows up. Unfortunately, it's not always fast getting parts. For those who are new, this is why it's the Random Junk channel. I literally have random junk lying around that I will scavenge for parts to repair other things. So, previous video of the Starlight Dance Hall, the Starlight Dance Hall has a pinwheel. That's why, if you've seen the previous videos, you'll see this. So this one is, the model is an M-4R12A. It's 12 volt, 50-60 hertz. It's looks like it's a 3-4 RPM. And again, the original is a 5-6, so this would spin slower. Shaft is the same size. Of course, it's slightly too long. Again, there's this thing called a Dremel with a cutting wheel, or a bandsaw, or a hacksaw if you're good enough. But let's find out if this thing is AC or DC. Also, if it's clockwise, counterclockwise, or both. Since the rest of it's written in German and it just repeats the same information. So, because I'm assuming Underhung and Leistung is German. I could be wrong. And model spelled with 2 L's, which I don't know how you spell model in German. It also might be a different language. What I'm going to do is, so I can use the same power supply, is I'm just going to shove the wires inside so I can share, so I don't arc it across those pins. I mentioned that in the Starlight Dance Hall. It's not going to do much but a little spark and maybe a tingle, but it's not that if you arc it you're going to damage the motor or hurt yourself. It's that you can damage that. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. So I'm just going to piggyback on its power. With the light bulb unscrewed, I should still be under its power rating. And I'm not going to be running it for like hours. I'm just going to run it long enough to test it. No, I think it's too much of a load. I can hear it arcing and straining. So let's try and do this without arcing the wires. Hey, look, it works. Alrighty. So the two motors together is just too much juice. The hole only goes down that far, which is a ½ inch. And I would have to cut off almost a ½ inch of this. So what I'm going to do is, I don't think I can move this back. Excuse me. Yeah, still. And it doesn't fit in here. There's a little mark in here from where the screw is rubbed, and that's probably the squeaky sound if you have this and it's squeaking. It's probably because it's rubbing the porcelain right there too. So you can see it doesn't go in. It doesn't fit in here. And this should fit perfect. I'll show you that this actually works. I'll make it so you can see it better than me just holding it. And most likely then tomorrow. It's 7:30 at night here, and sounds weird, but my bedtime's coming up quick since I usually get up around 3:30 in the morning. I will go out and I will cut this down to the appropriate length and then retap a new hole. So if I can get the wire to stay connected to the pin, it might actually work. Hopefully you can see that. Oh, notice how it changed direction? So every time you give this thing power and disconnect power, it's going to change. It's going to change directions. So it is a CW CCW, which it does not say. But if you've seen the previous ones, when they have a stamp or a sticker, because this is a Anyi, which they still make, but sometimes they're hard to find the right size. It says it's a CW right there. We're not talking about the TV network. Quick refresher, CW means clockwise rotation. CCW means counterclockwise rotation. And if it says CCW/CW, which I believe this motor does. So this one just says CCW. CCW. And then this one, there you go, CCW/CW. What that means is every time you turn off power and turn it back on, it'll reverse directions. Also, if it gets stuck, when it puts too much of a load on it, it'll flip directions too. Inside is a paw, and the paw swings back and forth, which changes polarity, directions. On here, the paw is pinned, so it can't flip backwards, but it was trying to, and you might have seen it before I took it apart where it's jerking a little, which indicates the internals of this is broke. Plus, you should never be able to grab the shaft and spin the motor. The way these things are built on the inside, since here's the one that I just did for the Starlight Dance Hall, you cannot spin these gears in reverse. They'll bind up. This is what the inside looks like. And here's what I did with the dance hall. Sorry, not the dance hall. What was it? The Ornament Factory. This is from the Ornament Factory, sorry. I cut the shaft top off. You can see it's jagged because I used a 4.5-inch angle grinder. This part I didn't need. I needed the top because on that it's really long. You'll see that video too. I had to get a new motor. I did fix it, but I want to get a new motor to actually fix it correctly. I showed you how to fix it in a pinch, and you'll see that in a future video. But I have the new motor on order. It won't be here for another couple of weeks. It is coming from China with a 4 to 6 week delivery. So that video will eventually be put up, and that will be the Department 56 Ornament House or Ornament Factory. I forgot the name of it already. It's been a couple of weeks since I worked on it. And I still have 2 weeks according to shipping before the parts show up. So we'll just work on this one and something else until everything arrives. So we got the same size body. We got the same size ears. Finding one or unidirectional motors is getting harder. Most of them all are flipping now. Even the one I just ordered, it's the same manufacturer, Anyi, which is ANNYIH. And I might be pronouncing it wrong, so don't hold me to it. The manufacturer is it's the exact same part number as what came out of the house I'm working on, but the one I took out was like this one, CW only. That same part number now says CCW/CW. So most likely what they did is they removed the paw, the locking paw, so it reverses directions. Probably because they had so many failures with it, or it kept getting wedged, or it would break the paw, which then the paw falls off inside the gears. And I said, I'm not sure. I don't know their history, but I can just tell you what I found by looking. And if you're wondering what a paw looks like, this is the paw. So it's got a little finger hook on the end and a circle, and it goes underneath usually the big gear here. And what that paw does is, when it goes under the big gear, it grabs the metal right in here and stops it from turning the wrong direction. Because if you look at this thing again, I'll grab it from the finger, the hole, even though it's circular, you can see it's got another finger right above it that's not attached. It's got a single finger that curves around that grabs. Which one is it? It's this one. And it grabs on the nose of the gear. So this doesn't have that ability. That one does, but it's broke. And more of these that I find that are broke, that it's the synchronous motor, it's the ones that are unidirectional. The ones that are bidirectional, I don't see as often. When I do, it's the motor burns out, not the paw breaks. This, the motor still hums and tries to turn, and I think, and because I can move it, I think the paw broke, which then in turn renders this whole thing useless. So we're going to leave it right here for a moment. I'm going to pause the video, and then in daylight, I will modify this and see if we can get this to work. If not, if the modifications don't work, which is a very good possibility, and I don't have any more of these lying around, I'll double check my stock of synchronous motors. I will see if I can find a replacement motor, since this one does have a model number, again, of M-4R12A. So there might be a cross-reference to this motor. I'll also cross-reference this motor. This one is an AM3. So we'll see what we can find. So at the moment, be back. We are back on the Peppermint house here. It's taken some time, and I've literally bought every motor known to man. I'm not even exaggerating. Here's the original right there. Here's one I tried right here. Didn't work. Here's a brand new one that ended up getting broken trying to make it work. And just so you see, I literally have been buying almost every synchronous motor I can find with a 40mm body, because that's very important. 40mm body is what this thing takes. And this is a 50, and this is a 40, and you can see there's a big size difference. So I ended up finding excuse me, a random, just the person had one listed on Amazon motor, and I bought it with those baggies of motors you see there, where over the course of 2 weeks I was getting little motor packages every day. And it's the same setup internally, just the wrong shaft. So, where the heck did it go? I don't even know where the shaft... Oh, here's the shaft. So this is the shaft it came with, which is the right thread and the right base, but it's too long. So, as you can see here, it would push the motor back to here. So, I heated it up with the heat pen over yonder, because the first time I tried to depress one of these, I shattered the gear, because these suckers are pressed on like permanently. I don't know if you can see, but just taking this one off, it's cracked. It cracked in the process. So I got the gear warm to where it was pliable, and then I heated up the shaft around the edge, and I was able to slightly tap the shaft through and got the gear off. And then I heated it up, stuck the new through, and then pressed the nose of the gear, wrong gear, right gear. You see the nose that stick, they're greasy, the nose that sticks out, and pressed it into the knurling on this shaft, the original, just to ensure a good seal, because I just heated it twice and cooled it twice. I also put a little of the Gorilla Gel around the knurling. So the heat should have made it bond really quickly. Then proceeded to put this back together, where I stuck it through, put the belt back on, got the plate, which is the hardest part, everything lined up as best as I can to where it spins. Now, I ended up putting some Gorilla Gel underneath the base, and then some hot glue right here to hold the motor, because there's nothing holding this motor in place at the moment. I'm going to put the resin back on the sides, and I'm going to put standoffs right here to hold on these wings, because there's holes right there for the spacing, because this spacing is slightly different than the OEM spacing, because the wings of the motor were just a hair different, and it happens. They don't make it anymore, so you gotta make it work. But to show you that it works, this is 12 volts AC right there, and so I have one already connected, and you can see it turning. And you can see the peppermints down lower turning too. 1 and 2. Okay. So, taking this apart, moderate. You got to get it hot and separate the resin. Finding a motor, that's going to be your hardest spot. That's your hardest thing. I'm not going to lie, you it's not something I want to do again, but I'm going to have to, because I have another one with a very similar issue that's not the same piece, but the motor's bad. It's a 40mm motor. It's a long shaft 40mm motor, similar to this one, but it's not this style shaft. It's instead of a thread shaft, it's a point shaft, or a threaded on shaft. I don't know all the names, but the point is, if you have something like this, you don't just want to go buy a new one, you're going to have to do some modifications, and it'll vary depending on what your issue is. So while I'm going to go ahead and get some resin on here while it's curing, which is going to take 24 hours for it to fully cure, because I don't have one of those UV curing things. I'm going to get the resin set, and then I'm going to solder these back on, fish the wire back through, and while it's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and reinforce the wings so there's no flex here, so the motor can't walk and rub this against the face. And then I will glue this back on. I am not going to glue it with anything tough like super glue or gel. I'm going to just use hot glue, good quality hot glue, Sure Bonder, and that way in the future, if the belt has to be changed, the belt will eventually break. This belt's in great shape. It's really stretchy and there's no cracks in it. It's really fat, so it should last a really long time. Or if the motor fails again, which all motors fail, it'll be easier to separate. So I always look at the future for repairs, not just the current. So I will turn this back on once it's reassembled. So I'll continue this here, well, in your time in an instant, my time 24 hours. So we'll be back with a, hopefully at that point, completely fully functional, ready to go back to its owner, candy cane house, or excuse me, peppermint house. Why do I call it candy cane? All right, have a good one. Be back in just a moment. Okay, well, it's all back together. See, all three are spitted. So this one probably lost your motor, maybe your belt if your bottom ones aren't working, but you got to superheat around the edges, the sides and the back, not the front, and then you can pull the top off. Then you got to superheat that motor to get it to break free from the resin. So it's not the easiest one to disassemble. Because of the hassle to get the motor, as much as I hate to say this, it might be easier to find a replacement. And I'm not talking motor. I'm talking sometimes you can find these actually relatively cheap online. Sometimes. I've seen people pick some expensive things up for no money at like garage sales or estate sales or Goodwill, or even OfferUp, things like that. Because this motor is so hard to locate that I had to build it. I had to take the faceplate off of it and then swap the shafts over and swap the gears over, so that way we could get it to work. So as far as this goes, this is as good as I'll be able to get it, because I can't find an OEM motor, and of course the person that owns it would like it back. So that concludes the Peppermint Pete's Candy Factory. So now it's ready to go back in its package and get sent back once I pull my connector off. So till the next one, thanks for watching.